Wyatt,
Here.
Engel, here, Reister,
Here.
Funds, present, Stabell.
Here.
I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, anything to remove? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports. Gail, Administration Personnel Committee, October 28th.
Okay, first item on the agenda was the discussion of the trap neuter release program. And this is a way that we can humanely help with the stray cat problem. So there's a program available where that can be done at $51 a cat. We discussed that the city could share 50% of this. We would have an application process that they would apply for once in a lifetime and put a limit on the number of cats that the city will cost share with. So the city clerk will put something together and we will get it to council and city attorney for approval. We brought up then the hiring policy that was tabled. And it allowed for more personnel administration participation. So the mayor will now set the hiring committee for any open position, and the committee will consist of the mayor, at least one but not more than 2 council members, and appropriate staff or committee member. And then the public works application was discussed, that the ad was placed at the beginning of the month, and the deadline for October 31st. And I believe that we are having interviews tomorrow night.
Yep.
Oh. We then talked about the residency requirements for 5 miles from city limits or within the fire district. I believe it was the Waterloo Fire Department that was considering the 60-mile radius. I did talk to Chief Banks and he felt that extending it to 10 to 15 miles would be fine, and so we recommended then to council on changing the residency policy from 5 miles to 10 miles. Next item then was the police department staffing. The mayor had done some financials for a full-time and part-time officers to be added to the force. Currently, we need to cover 192 hours for the 24/7, and then cover any leave time accrued by the employees. And the current cost is $293,008 for that current setup. With the new chief and adding a full-time and some part-time officers, the cost would be $309,542. But that gives us all 8 more hours a month that the department would have. So it was recommended then to public safety to consider hiring more staff. Next, we talked about the green fees at the golf course. The Frisbee golf course is now up and running, and there's no cost for that, but there is a fee for paying regular golf. The total income for the golf course was $2,500. So we thought maybe a sign could be installed that if they want to donate, they could, but we recommended that we just go ahead and eliminate the green fees. And so that was recommended to the Public Works Committee that they consider that. And the meeting adjourned at 5:29.
Any questions for Gail? Thank you, Gail. General government. Item A, discussion action to approve the 3rd reading of ordinance 824, an ordinance providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the October 2019 addition to the 2017 Hudson Housing Urban Renewal Area pursuant to section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? This was the Twin Oaks, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call.
Engel, Funds,
Aye.
Wyatt,
Aye.
Reister,
Aye.
Stabell.
5-0. Item B, discussion action to approve resolution 2538, a resolution finally adopting the proposed plan for the 2019 Hudson Commercial Urban Revitalization Area. And this is after the 30-day holding period we had to have in case a petition was filed against it. There was no petition filed, so we are ready for final approval.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Engel.
Aye.
Reister.
Aye.
Bunce. Stabell.
Aye.
Wyatt.
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Item C, discussion action to approve resolution 2539, a resolution setting a public hearing to amend section 69.08 of the City Hudson Code of Ordinances, and this is for setting a public hearing November 25th, and it's for having an ordinance for no parking on Riders Road and fast lane, is that correct?
Yes, and it's just for the portion of fast lane that is within the
In the
Deutsche
Deutsche
District.
Kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Which portion isn't?
It'd be on the Riders Road going in, the fast lane up and down, until you get to Twin Oaks. So it'd stop at the Twin Oaks.
I see. Thank you.
Discussion, roll call.
Engel.
Aye.
Stabell.
Aye.
Bunce.
Aye.
Wyatt.
Aye.
Reister.
5-0. Item D, discussion action to approve resolution 2540, a resolution approving the transfer of funds, and this is the normal monthly transfer plus the big one, wasn't it?
No, it was just the monthly
Oh,
transfer.
okay, just the transfers.
Yep.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Bunce.
Aye.
Wyatt.
Aye.
Engel. Aye. Reister.
Aye.
Stabell.
5-0. Discussion action to approve resolution 2541, a resolution for approval of wage adjustment for the City of Hudson, City Clerk, Zoning Administrator, Hudson, Iowa, and this is to give Chrissy a 50-cent hourly raise retro to October 1st, where she passed her Master of Public Administration degree.
Congratulations. So moved.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, good
Good
job.
job.
Congrats, I'm just curious about,
Yep.
do we have a number, like what was our total outlay for helping her through school? Do you know what that number was?
No, not off the top of my head.
12 grand, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Might have been more than that. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Do you think it was like significantly more than that, or like double that, or?
Under
No,
20?
I think it was under 20,
Okay,
for
and
sure.
then, this allows her to do other jobs, is that right? So just kind of talk through the
Yeah.
efficiency of, my understanding was that, aren't we like not hiring someone else because she's doing extra stuff, or?
Well, right now, we did not replace the zoning administrator, so that's the biggest change to it.
Who was that?
That was Bob Stevenson,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
part-timer. And I'll publicly say she's been doing a great job at that. When we were trying to do that, I pretty much, it's her now. She calls me if there's some issue. Developers come in, we meet, so that we can both have face-to-face. Effectively, she's got enough education now that I would be comfortable in the future considering changing her job description to city administrator. Does not change the form of city government, but if you look around towns like Parkersburg and others, they have a city administrator, which basically, city administrator would be responsible for all staff. So instead of having public works staff and the building inspector reporting into me, or reporting to the mayor's position, it would hopefully set it up to where if it was city administrator, you can have people reporting into Chrissy even without being called city administrator, but I think in the future, that's what she's set up to be able to do with the education, cross-education she's had, in her own capabilities.
Great. I'm happy that you've done this, and congratulations. I'm just always looking at it
Sure.
from the cost reward for the city.
Yep.
And so that's why I asked this question.
Well, and unfortunately, fortunately, you're stuck with me for 6 years.
Did we sign the contract?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've got that.
Yep.
You gotta stick around now.
Clawback.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
And so, and I know that it was based on my grade point average, and I graduated with 3.9.
Yay, congratulations. Good for you.
My very first class that I took was human resources, and I got a B in it, so.
Nice work.
And that's where the cross-education she's had in those type of responsibilities, HR and other stuff, and then the city government especially, is what's got her set up now.
Can I ask what we were paying Bob?
18?
It was like, yeah, 16, it was based on what he could get for social security.
Yeah.
Or the max, and I think
Yeah.
it was like
Because last
600,
Per month?
16,728
Something
or
like-
something.
But it would not be what I would call market rate. He wanted to have something to do. He had retired basically from Waterloo, and he was willing to do it.
$1,500 a year?
He agreed that
$1,500 a month.
he couldn't take any more
Oh,
than that. He agreed to volunteers, effectively volunteers.
I remember all that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, okay.
But he also had enough hours or stuff that we also paid health insurance for him, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
so that was an added
Bundled into one
benefit.
position,
Yep.
you don't have a double up of that.
That's kind of what I'm,
Yep.
Want to do that?
Yep.
Great.
Roll call.
Wyatt,
Aye.
Engel. Aye. Reister.
Aye.
Bunce.
Aye.
Stabell.
Sorry, I almost forgot what we were voting on.
Item F, discussion and action to approve resolution 2542, a resolution to amend residency requirement. Before I have a motion on that one, I did a little mapping. I would like consideration of instead, you heard Gail talk about at the admin committee, we talked about going from the 5 to 10 miles, because we've had 10 miles in that pretty much forever. She talked to Chief Banks. Chief Banks would be comfortable with a 10 to 15 mile an hour range to have
Did you
more
just
candidates.
say we've been at 10 miles?
We've
for-
been at
we've
5
5
miles.
He's in a 5.
Okay.
What's in the resolution was 10, based upon what we talked about at the admin. What I'd like consideration is going to 15 or 20. Now, with Chief Banks being comfortable with 10 to 15, I'm okay with 15. What this maps, I did some Googles quick today. Basically, 15 miles out would get you eastbound somewhere between Raymond and Jessup. It would take 20 miles to include Jessup. Second page on the back side, 15 miles would pick up Traer. 20 miles would let you pick up Geyser. Third page, if it was 15 miles, you can get to Janesville, you can get Denver. It would take 18 miles to get to Waverly. If you went westerly, 15 miles should just basically pick up Grundy Center.
Is this for all, okay, hold up though, because if this is for all positions, I think we need to look at this a little differently.
It's not for all positions, it's for what's determined as being if you look at
But I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea, and maybe I'm wrong or in the minority here, but if we've got a police chief or if we've got a police officer that we need to get in here quickly, the whole point of having that mileage radius is to not have them a half an hour away. Which I'm okay with 10 because I think we do need to expand it out a little bit here, but I think we need to do more research and decide which are critical.
And that's what George
Positions.
and I had just talked about.
Yeah,
I mean-
here's what it says in our residency requirements, it says to ensure a reasonable response time for emergency standby personnel for the city of Hudson. Such personnel are required within a reasonably agreed to time frame set by the mayor and council at the date of hire to establish residency within the Hudson Fire District or within currently 5 miles of the Hudson city limits. The second paragraph in it is emergency standby personnel unless stated in their union contract, and the only people on union contract is the police other than the chief, are those employees in the police department, fire departments, water, sanitary, sewer, and public works departments who are normally assigned weeknight and weekend standby status for emergency response to situations requiring immediate attention.
Basically, everybody in public works, though, right?
What, the tricky part of that is okay, let's say we have Public Works. Okay, we've got a Public Works director who happens to be within the requirement. Say we have somebody responsible for the sewer plant, sewer and sanitary. They have to have a level 2 to be DNR certified for our plant to have it. Does that person have to be within a residency requirement, or is it sufficient to have the public works who would have overall responsibility within that distance? Same way with the police, is it the police individual or is it the police chief that needs to stay within?
I think all of them do, because I think if something happens with the police chief, I want that police officer here too, if they potentially call him. That's just me. I would say 10 miles would be stretching it to me. I would prefer all of them to live in Hudson. Obviously, we all would, which isn't always an ability to do so.
Right.
But do we have a specific case that this is affecting? Or is it just
It could
looking out
affect
for the
us
future?
on current hires, where we're trying to get candidates for public works positions.
That's a question I was gonna ask.
It's a frequent affecting for small towns on the DNR2 certification.
Well, I'm sure it is.
That's a real problem.
And that's a case where, from an emergency scenario, we probably would have 3 or 4 people in public works who in an emergency situation could do what's necessary to be done. The certification of level 2 that's required by the DNR is primarily focused on the daily testing, the daily monitoring, in order to stay within various bacterial levels. So even though that person is critical to have a level 2 be DNR, is it does that person meet the requirements of having to be within
What?
the 5 or the 10 or the 15 if we have other people in there?
Why don't we change how it's worded then, so it's not all positions? Why don't we change so it's, you know, if you're the chief or if you're a
Manager.
management, you know, if you're something else, why don't we just relook at the whole policy and not just have it blanketed to everybody?
I have two questions.
Well, it's
Go ahead.
emergency,
Mm-hmm.
so anything related to
Well-
testing at the sewer plant is not gonna be an emergency.
Oh.
It
Right.
doesn't, but the way we've got, I like your thought about looking at the verbiage, because in the verbiage, we're stating that anybody who's on standby is by definition considered emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got all your public works
Yeah.
people that are on call once every eight weeks or something.
So-
So it's anything at night or on weekends that they would have to come in for.
So I would like to go beyond the 5, I'd like to go to 10, but I'd be comfortable if we went to 10, and then Chrissy and I work at a redefinition of the residency requirements that is comfortable to the council as far as who exactly is, or how do they get waived from being required under that jurisdiction or under that mileage.
I'm a little bit in Kate's boat.
Okay.
My questions are, could you have a stricter law or requirement and then grant exemptions on a case-by-case basis?
We could grant exemptions on this basis, but I would want full council approval on an action like that.
Yeah,
You know, and then the concern I would have is, are you doing it for an individual or are you doing it for a position?
Right.
okay, so that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's,
And even Chief Banks, he was fine, he just wanted to make sure he could be within that 5, where he ended up buying from an affordability standpoint, because that was a challenge within this.
my other question is, 5 miles isn't always the same in terms of response time. So
Correct.
if you live on the north side of Cedar Falls, I mean, this looks like 5 miles might get you into North Cedar.
Mhm.
Or it gets you down by Voorhees, you're gonna get here way quicker from Voorhees than you are from North Cedar. And so is miles the correct measurement?
I think miles,
That's interesting.
I think miles might be more, what I noticed in our residency requirement, it's residency within the mileage from the city limits.
Right.
If you look at Waterloo's having a big discussion. Cedar Rapids talks 60 miles. Waterloo has theirs, the distance is from City Hall.
That's what I thought too.
If we were from City Hall, then it's very easy to come up with, okay, what is the circle? The problem with it now is if we were at 5, if we went to 5 miles from City Hall, it barely gets us into Waterloo. So if it's from 5 miles or 10 miles from Hudson city limits, gives
Right.
us a lot broader range. That's why I can go with 10 miles, but if we went with 10 miles from City Hall, do we need to be at 15 from City Hall? Because we're almost 5 miles from downtown Hudson to the city limits. If we stay with the city limits, 10 miles, it's easy enough, now that I know how to hit the right mouse click on Google Maps and figure out distance instead of driving, there's no problem with figuring out distances.
My thought about Cedar Rapids and Waterloo, and I'm like, this is just me shooting from the hip, but I wonder, are their residency requirements broader because there's more capable people at their disposal to come
As
in
far
and
as
do
staff
stuff?
goes, probably.
And that's something that the chief and I talked about, and he's agreed that they have a larger, resources to draw on.
Yeah,
Can't.
So that's why he wants to keep his, staff close.
So he's.
And that's where he said
recommending-
10 or 15, he was
Right,
fine
right.
with.
Personally, I'm okay with the 10, but like I said, I think personnel should revisit this and look at the different levels of employees. Because there may be a huge difference between a level 2 cert person that has to come in on the weekend, because we're not paying them mileage anyways to get here.
Right.
So, that may be different than what we want the police chief to require,
Sure.
because, and could it be the critical responders that are the hazmat or the whatever, the emergency, Black Hawk County emergency, there's captains for each, that have to be, like Chad is one and Chief Marsh, that maybe those are the core people that would be here in case there's a nuclear bomb in the middle of town.
Mhm.
You're one of them. I think you have to go to the tunnels underneath City Hall, right?
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, something like the situation room, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the 10. I just think that we should look at it because there may be some of those employees that we are losing that just don't need to be included in that 10. That could be another way too.
So do we table the whole situation and come back with the verbiage that we want overall instead of piecemealing it meeting by meeting? I feel like.
I think that's a good idea.
Or you can just vote to not approve it
Okay,
and,
let's do it.
and we can revisit it.
And
Right, can we do that, Heather? Okay.
I'd like to do mileage from City Hall, so it's just fixed.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's not a nebulous, well, if I'm way over in this corner, and well, if we
And it can
annex
be
this
changed
next
if we
little
annex something,
area,
Yeah.
is that all right?
And maybe it makes it a longer distance, but it's at least from a fixed point, not,
Yeah.
I think that's,
Well, and
yeah,
most of the emergency response would be coming to City Hall
right.
or the sewer plant, which is
Or the
close,
fire department,
or
which is all
the
close.
main
And I was just
buildings down
gonna
here.
say, I wouldn't mind seeing a map that had what the fire district it really is.
The fire
Okay.
district goes
I
out
thought
there.
it's humongous.
It's
Yeah,
huge 'cause
way
it's a
bigger than,
township,
because I actually had to go see
So
the
I
fire
think we
station
need
and take a
to
picture of it.
come from both directions
Okay.
on that.
Well, the residency requirement is either within the mileage or within the fire district, so we don't have an allowance for mileage outside the fire district, correct?
No, we don't, it's either within or within so many miles of city limits.
I would rather you table it because that tells the public there's interest in the process of changing it versus just rejecting it and having it turned back up again.
I'd make a motion to table it.
Okay.
Discussion?
Who seconded
All in
the
favor, say aye.
Matt,
Fry Center.
Okay,
I think I spelled your name wrong when I voted for you, by the way.
That's fine.
well, it doesn't get mad.
I don't need a roll call on this, do I, for the
No,
table?
no.
It's phonetic and voted.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
MR.
Okay, it's tabled.
I know you didn't.
Informational items, there's a number in the pack, don't go too far. Reminder items, regularly scheduled council chambers, set electric board and library board, public works, November 13th, 7 a.m., mayor's task force, November 19th, 5 p.m., public safety committee, November 21st at 4 p.m., personnel admin, November 25th at 4:45 p.m. Next council meetings, November 25th, and then there'll only be one in December, and that will be December 16th. Now what I need is a motion pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 2151C to discuss strategy, to go into closed session to discuss strategy with council and matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where it is disclosure, its disclosure be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation.
I moved to go to closed session.
My second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.